Hi, this is Odeean. Today I'm going to do a comparison slash review of two figures at the same time. So on the left here I've got Transformers Prime Beast Hunters Grimwing, and on the right I've got Transformers Prime Beast Hunters Predacons Rising Darksteel. If you remember back to my video of Beastfire Predaking, I said I was going to get some more beasts because he had sort of swayed me over to taking a second look at these. Now, since then, I've watched the whole cartoon and the last small movie thing, the Predacons Rising, and I really enjoyed it. That's not to say that all the toys are great, but at least these two figures are pretty good. When I say pretty good, I guess one of the key things that I'm getting at is that the gloss and density of the plastic seem reasonably high quality, something like what we got with Shockwave. So you can even see it there. There's a little bit of gloss, and I don't know if it's coming through there, but the wall thickness on that plastic is adequate, and that's quite important. And I mean, I know this is not a review of Optimus Prime, but I'm just going to put this guy up for comparison. This is probably the worst figure that I've ever bought that holds the official Transformers name on it, especially for an Optimus Prime. And part of that is the wall thickness, especially in places like this, is extremely thin, and there is a really low density to this guy. So he's basically just a huge empty space. To top it off, the plastic feels very soapy. It just is not a high grade plastic. It's about as close to a KO straight out of China that you could possibly get and still call it a Transformer. Even the ratcheting joints don't really have springs in it. It's just bending plastic making those sounds. So this is kind of the low point. Now, these guys, on the other hand, are not that low, and they come out at almost the same time. So it's a little bit surprising, to tell you the truth, that Prime got a worse treatment than some of these beasts. Now, one thing we don't get is ratchets. You can't hear any clicking there. Now, there is some bumpy surface here, which is probably meant to be slightly ratcheting in action, because in the knee here, which is hard to show on camera, there is a little nub of plastic that pushes in to those indents, but it is so frail, and like there's not enough force for me to actually call that a ratchet. It's probably intended to be a ratchet, doesn't really work out that way. So most of his joints are just pins with friction, but the toy actually doesn't suffer from it. It isn't that heavy, so he can hold all his limbs in whatever poses you stick them in. As far as I can tell, both toys are identical. One area where they separate a little bit is that the Darksteel variant has paint put into the grooves where these glyphs are. I mean, we do get that on the wings here, but on the forearms, I mean, if I just do a direct comparison, you'll see that the forearms really pop out here with the paint in those grooves. More of that detailing up here and a little bit on the shoulder. You may have noticed that the way I've transformed the legs in robot mode isn't how it's officially done on the box. If you look at the box art, this bends into that position, making a really ridiculous, huge looking foot, and also substantially shortening the overall height of the robot mode figure. I don't like it in that position, but I'm just gonna put him in that way so you can get an idea of how he's supposed to look. I find that to be much worse than how he is here, and it goes this way so well that I can't see any reason not to do it. The figure does have one key weakness, and that is, you can see on Grimwing here, that's how he looks nice posed, but there isn't actually a tab or a peg to keep that down. So what ends up happening is that you constantly bump it out while playing with the figure, so that the head doesn't really lock in here in any way. And I mean, I can't see any point which is going to peg in. Maybe they just omitted it, or cost savings forced them to leave it out. Either way, what I like to do is keep the mouth open like that and just put it over that little notch in there, and that's about as firm as what you can get it to stay. Grimwing comes with two weapons, and the first I'll show isn't actually shown on the box, but you can pop out these shoulder blades. You can stick them on the forearms. Maybe it could be a throwing weapon, or given that he's got a hand that can slightly move, he can hold on to them like this. Oh, there it goes. So his second weapon is this really unsightly thing. Now I've thrown out the box, so I can't remember what it's called. It's on a cable here, which you can see I've wrapped up. If you push it hard enough, it pops out. It's like a friction firing mechanism. This is a hideous weapon. What I would have liked to have seen done with this is for it to separate and become a kind of beast mode helmet where it could go over his beast mode head. But unfortunately it doesn't do that. Let's get to the transformation. Transformation is pretty simple. So I'm going to fold back these parts from the bottom of his feet, and then I'm going to collapse in the joint like that, just to shorten up the leg a little bit. Next thing, we want to splay out the thumb like that. Lift this part up. The head is just going to flip around. It's really not much of a transformation. It's basically just reorienting various parts of the body, like he's just going to bend down like a dog would and go on all fours. The only real transformation step is pulling out that. So everything else is just folding him up. And that's about it. Apparently this is an Ursagryph. I don't really care. I'm not that much into dragons that I have to have individual names for every breed. Maybe it's not even technically a dragon. To me, it looks cool. It looks good enough to be a dragon. It looks kind of like the same body shape as Zool from Ghostbusters. So that's my connection to it. One thing that's a little disappointing, the wings don't fold out. The upper portion of the wings can fold out like this, but it doesn't really add anything to the look of the figure. So I tend to just put them in a halfway point like that. He looks pretty fearsome. That other weapon that I showed a moment ago can peg on the top of the back like this, or it can peg on in the back side of the figure like this. And either way, it doesn't look very nice. If it just could have gone over here, I would have been really pleased with that. I still can't believe they passed up that opportunity. I keep thinking there must be a way to split it in half and put it on, but I haven't found it yet. I bought both of these figures at the same time from different places. That's kind of why I ended up with both. I wasn't sure which one I was going to like best. As it turns out, I think I like Grimwing a little bit better. The differences between the green and the grey bring out the mould quality a little bit more, I think. Although the dark blue looks really nice here on Darksteel, I just think that it doesn't do the mould justice. And it can be a little bit hard to light him in a good way. You can see, even though I've changed my setup here, he doesn't really show up. You get a lot of dark shadows in photos and stuff, just because he's a very dark figure. Whereas Grimwing looks pretty good no matter how you set him up. Here's a quick size comparison. On the left, Grimwing. On the right, Beastfire Predaking. I think they're really scaled well together. I quite like that. My final thoughts. Are these guys worth it? So in Australia, the answer is, at retail price, no. I wouldn't recommend picking these up because they are not Transformers. They are basically action figures that bend over. So they are pretty cool, and I do like them, but our retail is $50, and I don't think they're worth it. If you're lucky enough to find these less than $50, then maybe. I bought this guy for $33 shipped off eBay. I think he's a good buy at that price, and I can highly recommend it at $33 shipped. I don't know how much longevity they're going to have on my Transformers collection, because they're not really beasts in the sense that Beast Wars were beasts, and they're not really good at transformation, as I just mentioned. So when I get a bit bored of how they look, they're probably going to get packed away. But in the short term, they're pretty fun, and I can recommend them just for a bit of fun, and especially if you like dragons. So that's my video review for Transformers Prime Beast Hunters, Grimwing, and Darksteel. I'm Odeean. Thank you for watching.